delay. My name is Elaine Rivers. I'm the Director of Communications for the law firm of Fatima Johnson and the family of Dreasjon Reed. We'll be starting momentarily. Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending. I'm sorry for the delay. I would, at the end of the attorney speaking, we will have a Q&A. Please, if you can put your questions in the Q&A box, that is fine, but we will not be answering any questions until the end of the conference.
Good morning. Thank you for waiting for us. I have some remarks that I prepared, so I will just be starting with those. And afterwards, Attorney Conte has some remarks that he has prepared as well. Um, I am disappointed. I'm mostly disappointed in the fact that we are not surprised. I'm disappointed that it would be a rarity to find a Black person who lives in this city who is surprised. I am beyond disgusted that Dreasjon's family was denied justice, that Dreasjon will not be afforded the privilege of finding justice inside of a criminal courtroom. In this case, the flaws of the justice system have been brought to the surface once again. In this state and every other state around the country, just one eyewitness's testimony is sufficient to convict a murderer. In this case, we know that there were at least 10 eyewitnesses, most of whom testified before the grand jury. Their testimony was consistent. Dreasjon was tased, he fell, he was shot while still shaking on the ground. He did not shoot back. We were reminded after the Breonna Taylor decision that the chances of an indictment against the police are always slim. that even after an international campaign for justice for a Black woman killed while fast asleep in her bed, nothing happened? How much more disfavored would Dreasjon be after he dared to run, after he dared to fall, after having electricity pumped through his body, after he dared to move, after he was shot again and 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 again. That Dreasjon Mercer did not stop shooting until Dreasjon stopped moving, until Dreasjon stopped breathing, until his life was gone and he was not here anymore. And all that was left was a memory and grief and pain and tears and blood and a tent that sits on Michigan Road in a grassy field, a tent that holds memories of him and his hopes and his dreams, a dream-catching tent that has been burned, that has been ripped, that has been vandalized again and again, but now stands again. This dream catcher represents all of our dreams, Black people's dreams, our American dream, Martin's dream, Malcolm's dream, the dream of a litany of civil rights martyrs. Our American dream has become a nightmare that replays every day, a nightmare grounded in dashed hopes. The resolve that you saw, the pain that was palpable, the streets that bubbled all summer long was from a dream that has long been deferred, a dream that has never quite been within our collective reach. It does not escape us that this decision was made before the grand jury convened. It does not escape us that the election, that politics, that standing in the community have all come into play. We know that the system is functioning as intended and is fully operational in doing what it was meant to do, in acquiring justice for some, but not for all. And we know that people still find room to be elitist, to be apathetic, to stick their heads in the proverbial sand, even within a system that's designed to oppress them and people who look like them. Our role in the criminal portion of this case was non-existent. We do not represent the state. We do not decide on charges to present to a grand jury. We are not prosecutors. We are not judges. So far, we have functioned merely as victim advocates. And in that capacity, we have never seen so much corruption. We have never seen so much complacency. Notwithstanding, we are prepared to move forward with the civil portion of this case because Dreasjon Mercer must be held accountable for the life he took. The city must answer for their role in hiring people like him. Their answer must consist of more than them thinking that Dreasjon was nothing, that his life didn't matter, that he was just another superhuman 150-pound Black man who could withstand more than a dozen bullets and a taser and still with his head hanging half off, get up, turn over, and shoot bullets that no one sees while using his dark magic to conjure a mass hallucination. Dreasjon's family is heartbroken, but the fight will continue. And now it's our turn. It will not be an easy fight, but we are ready. I am heavily insulated from any ire that has been thrown my way. I can take it. It is not a burden. I'm not beholden to anyone or any office. The burden here has been on his family. The burden here has been trying to understand the people who have no stake in this matter and who choose to harass, to incite, to trouble Dreasjon's family. His family is my only concern. Just as some people would prefer not to see me again, some people who thought we would shut up and sit down and eat crow after this decision, I would love to never have to do this again, to never have to fight this fight again. But if the way this case unfolded and the things that led up to the death of this young man and this decision of this grand jury, if they happen again, if they're not fully addressed, If people with power go through the motions to placate the masses with no intention of truth telling or taking accountability, I will be back here next year saying this again, giving this same speech about the next person that is taken. This will happen again. It does not have to, but it will take all of us to stop it. We need you. We need the people of Indianapolis to say that enough is enough. Enough injustice for the Michael Taylors and Dreasjon Reeds of our community. Enough of mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, friends mourning in the streets. Enough diatribes about how demands not to be slaughtered amount to not appreciating the good cops. What does it matter that there are good cops when the bad ones roam with impunity? We did not create a public relations crisis for you, IMPD. You did that. Own it. People do not trust you because of you. People of Indianapolis, we have had enough. We have had enough talking. It's time to own our power. It's time to act. People of Indianapolis, our power is evident when we come together. Please continue to fight for the justice that Dreasjon deserves. Please know that we will fight as long as breath is in us. May Dreasjon rest in power, and more power to the people.
Thank you, Fatima, for a very strong sentiment. This is Attorney Suare Kante with the law firm of Fatima Johnson. As you all know, on November 10th, just last week, this week actually, the special prosecutor announced that the grand jury would not indict Officer Mercer. As Fatima indicated, we were very disappointed, but actually not surprised, because that's the system, that's how it works. But what caught our attention is that just after that, there was a press conference by the Indiana State Police. I suppose that press conference was to tell the public the evidence that they presented before the grand jury, evidence that justified the actions of Dreasjon, of Officer Mercer. We have looked at the evidence, and we were surprised that they even had the audacity to present that evidence to the public, because that evidence actually support the proposition that Mr. Officer Mercer should have been indicted. Now, right from the beginning of this case, the IMPD was adamant that Mercer ran all those bullets on Dreasjon because he shot at him first. We've looked at the evidence, even in their own statements. It's very clear that Dreasjon did not shoot at Officer Mercer at all. We are going to review the evidence with you this morning and show you the parts of the evidence that really support what we've been saying all along, that Dreasjon never shot at Officer Mercer. Can we play that video, part of the video, 10?
This is that overlapping, that rock, and this is 6 and 7. So you get that wave pattern of one shot, and then you immediately, just in the milliseconds, get that second shot at the same time. This is the overlapping cases. These are going.
Can we play the video of the chase when Officer Mercer was chasing Dreasjon? Can we play that? Do we have that ready? No. Okay, that's fine. This one. Okay.
Particular case, yeah. Test. Eyewitnesses. We had quite a few that we interviewed. We retained them all on Michigan Street with the stoplight both going north to south. So part of
Well, in that video, if we watched the TV broadcast of of the um, the press conference, about 10 minutes in that press conference by the Indiana State Police, you will see uh, Officer Mercer chasing Dreasjon. It's very clear on that video. He actually got straight up on him and chased him, and he fell to the ground. And then he pulled back and started shooting at him. It's very clear evidence. There was nowhere where you would see Dreasjon getting up on his butt or any part of his body to shoot at Officer Mercer. It's very clear. And I can tell you that the explanation they gave regarding the gunshots, there were like 13 straight up gunshots. What they told the public is that after the 6th or the 7th shot, there was crossfire. That means that by the 6th to the 7th shot, Dreasjon would have shot at Officer Mercer. That's a clear indication as to who shot first. So the first 5 shots then were fired by Officer Mercer. If we even accept their own theory that the 6th to 7th shot there was crossfire, that tells you who first shot. It was clearly Officer Mercer. Now, their explanation somehow that Dreasjon got up after the 4th shot, that Dreasjon got up when he was tased and tried to shoot at Officer Mercer is not even supported by the video. Detective Lieutenant Heron, he was asked that question point blank during his press conference, whether he can tell who shot first. He could not say. He didn't know definitively who shot first. It's very clear from his own evidence that Officer Mercer shot first. Now, there were witnesses, just like Fatima said. They didn't know who shot first according to their own evidence, but there were at least 9 witnesses who testified. They actually testified consistently. They never saw Dreasjon shoot at Officer Mercer. It was Officer Mercer that started shooting at him. No witness saw Dreasjon shoot at Officer Mercer. Guess what? During the press conference, Lieutenant Heron conveniently did not talk about the eyewitnesses who testified before the grand jury. In fact, he said, we interviewed a few witnesses, but did not say what the witnesses told them. That tells you something. So there were many, many other errors in that press conference. For example, take the weapon. The weapon, they had this big analysis about the weapon, where it was found, but they showed us a video of one of their officers, Baylors, moving the so-called weapon, we don't know from where, and placing it somewhere else. Well, the explanation they gave was that they were doing that for the safety of the medical personnel. That's why they moved the gun. Well, guess what? The medical personnel did not come there until maybe 40, 45 minutes later. They had the opportunity to simply take a picture of the weapon where it was found on Dreasjon. They didn't do that. They moved it. Let's say it was Dreasjon's gun. Was it in his pocket? Well, we have transcriptions of the conversation between the police officers that tend to indicate that he had some taser in his pocket. If they had taken a picture of that gun, we would know whether Dreasjon had the gun in his hand, or even if it was his gun, whether it was still in his band or in his pocket. They didn't do that. They moved the gun and claimed that it was for the safety of the security of the medical personnel. During the press conference also, the Lieutenant Heron was asked whether they did any tests on Dreasjon's hands to see if there was any gun residue, any bullet residue. He could not answer that question. Instead, he went to this theory about while it would have shown false positive, false negative, but that's not the question. Did you do that? If he had shot, you will see residue in his hands. They didn't do that. In fact, he ran and started talking about DNA evidence to associate the gun with Dreasjon. Guess what they didn't do? They didn't do fingerprints. We wanted to know whose was Mercer's hands on that. Did Mercer touch that gun? You know, because we see him almost grabbing Dreasjon during the chase. Did he touch the gun? We don't know, because they quickly removed the gun and never took a picture of where the gun was located, if at all. Now, they claim that Dreasjon shot, stood, got up on his buttocks and shot at Officer Mercer. It's purely speculative, even though they started their conference by saying, you are not going to speculate. When you ask them, well, how did you get this evidence? They said it's the ballistic person. Really? We have eyewitnesses. Did they say anything about the eyewitnesses? No. They're relying on ballistic evidence to show that Dreasjon was moving his body. Now, you have to ask yourself, why is it, that none of the eyewitness testimony was included in the public display that was shown on Tuesday, November the 10th? Fatima did mention Breonna Taylor. In her case, the police officer there was indicted on a very minor offense based solely on what one eyewitness said. Just one eyewitness in the Breonna Taylor's case. One eyewitness testimony was sufficient to indict a police officer. I can tell you in this case, and we'll produce that evidence in due course, there were multiple eyewitnesses who actually saw what happened. Most of their evidence, because if you agree with Lieutenant Taylor, he didn't know who shot first. So all of their claim is based on pure speculation when you disregard the testimony of the eyewitnesses. There were other multiple problems with that presentation that we saw that day on with Lieutenant Heron. Multiple problems. And then, that really bothered me. Something bothered me with that presentation. First, the detective, the lieutenant, they said he'd been with the police for 35 years, and in order to poison the public, he went into details that I'm really not going to dignify in this presentation regarding how Dreasjon acquired the gun, if he did have that gun with him. The young man is dead. He's not here to defend himself. All the lieutenant was doing was besmirch his character, that he stole the gun. He had, people get charged with crimes all the time. I mean, we believe that even after if you agree that he had the gun, he flew to Indianapolis from Texas. He didn't drive here. Everything that he came with was legally obtained. So for him to bring in that comment about Dreasjon stealing the gun, which is completely inappropriate, even if he stole the gun, they didn't have a right to shoot at him the way Officer Mercer did. There's really no reason for that. It does not come into play. The issue was not how the gun was acquired, if at all he owned the gun. The issue in this case, what caused Officer Mercer to shoot so violently at Dreasjon. They admit that Officer Mercer tased him. Consistent with what the eyewitnesses said, when he tased him, he fell. And if you look at that video, you see when he fell down, the boy was convulsing. They claim that he was pulling, he was making a draw. That's one of the comments Detective Lieutenant Heron made. He showed a picture of hand movement. Well, guess what? If you look at the video of the chase, Dreasjon was running with, they admit, with two phones on his right hand and a shirt on his left hand. Did they mention that? No. How did he shoot? How did he draw? They just showed movement of the hands. It's not even the movement, a static picture of his hand. They say he was drawing. There's nothing on that video or nothing on that picture that would slightly indicate that he was drawing any gun. You understand? So we have more to say. We are just asking the public to review the evidence that was presented by the state. You will see that it's a very shallow piece of work, and Mr. Officer Mercer should have been indicted, and he had the opportunity to prove his innocence in court. Thank you.
We're now ready to take any questions that you may have. Please submit them in the Q&A, and we'll answer as many as we can. Thank you.
Okay.
She's going to unmute them.